4, 3. Good afternoon, and welcome to this virtual town hall meeting for College of Charleston students and families. I'm Mike Robertson, Senior Director of Media Relations, and I will be moderating today's event off camera. I'm joined by College of Charleston President Andrew Hsu and the college's senior leadership team, all of whom are participating remotely from separate locations. This is our 11th round of virtual town halls, and whether you're joining us from previous town hall meetings or this is your very first one, we sincerely appreciate you taking time to participate. The format for today's event will be similar to past ones and will last about 45 minutes. We'll start with opening remarks from President Hsu, followed by opening remarks from Bridget McClernand Sykes, our Director of Student Health Services. And then we'll get to your questions. As always, you can submit questions live using the Q&A window at the top right of your screen. I will read each selected question out loud, and the appropriate presenter will respond. Selected questions will appear in the Q&A window and also on a slide on your main screen. Now, we want these town halls to be conversational, so our presenters may also follow up questions of one another. If we don't read your question live during today's event, our presenters will still try to answer you directly through the chat. And by the way, you are also welcome to submit your questions to our COVID-19 email address at any time. That address is covid19@cofc.edu. And with that, I'll turn it over to President Hsu for opening remarks. President Hsu.
Thank you, Mike. Welcome everyone to our last town hall meeting before we start our classes next Tuesday. Let me first express my sincere gratitude to all the students and family members for your being here. Thank you for pushing through all of the challenges to this point. You prove that not even a pandemic can stop you or the College of Charleston. This is both an exciting time as well as a time of anxiety, because we are starting a most uncommon semester, the like of which none of us had experienced before in our lifetimes. We, the faculty and staff of the College of Charleston, are excited to get you back to campus. I want to let you know how proud I am of everyone. For those returning students, I'm so proud of all the work you did this past spring and summer to keep moving forward in your academic progress. For our new students, you have gone through a lot to join us. We are excited to welcome you and to have you become a part of our greater CFC community. For me, I just completed my freshman year here at the College of Charleston. Having been on this campus for more than a year, I can honestly say that this is one of the most special, caring community of scholars in the country. Our faculty, along with our great staff, have been working hard these past months to be ready for this fall semester. Our professors are ready to share their incredible knowledge with you. I want to take a moment to do a brief public service announcement. I would like to remind everyone to do 3 things. Wear your face coverings, practice social distancing wherever possible, and wash your hands frequently. Why is this important? If we all do our small part, we will be able to accomplish big things like returning to campus for in-person instruction in September, and more importantly, staying on campus. To that end, we are closely monitoring the state and national landscape for universities. We're watching carefully what is happening at other campuses so that we may avoid having to go to a remote learning environment for the entire semester, like many or a couple of the universities have done in the last couple of days. What we have seen at some other universities reinforces how important it is for our students to follow the safety and the health protocols outlined in our Cougar Pledge. At this time, we're still moving forward with our September 14th return to in-person instruction date. Before we get to your questions, we would like to go over in more detail our COVID-19 testing requirement announced earlier today. Bridget McClernand-Sykes, who heads our student health services, will talk a little bit about the COVID-19 testing requirement. Bridget?
Thanks, President Hsu. Hey, everybody. Thanks for showing up at the town hall today. We are, as many of you probably saw earlier today, President Hsu sent out a message about a new testing protocol that we have. So I'm going to go over the points if it was something that you didn't get a chance to take a look at. Beginning with all students who will be living in campus-operated residence halls or historic homes will be required to submit a PCR, also known as a polymerase chain reaction test or an antigen test related to COVID-19, whether it's positive or negative, taken on or after August 28th. Students who have had a previous PCR or antigen test, so that was something that's been dated before August 28th, can upload those results, and they don't need to be tested again before returning to campus. On-campus residential students who do not have a COVID-19 test result uploaded won't be authorized to move into campus housing until their test results are provided. Off-campus students are strongly encouraged to submit a PCR or an antigen test result, whether it's positive or negative, prior to returning to campus. And students who have received a housing exemption to move in early will be given specific instructions regarding screening and testing. So for those students who plan to be online for the duration of the fall semester and do not plan to come to campus at all, they are not required to submit a test or be tested on campus. The college is planning to offer some limited on-campus testing for students prior to the start of the in-person classes, but we are really asking that everyone should first attempt to seek testing on their own. And after we get everybody on campus, our plan is to then continue testing periodically random samples of the campus population throughout the rest of the semester. This will give us an idea of how well we're able to control the virus while everyone is here. Faculty and staff are advised to continue to monitor their symptoms and seek COVID-19 testing in a separate way. Thanks, President Hsu.
All right, thank you, Bridget. Let's go ahead and get to some of your questions here. Let's go to the first one. Can you guarantee that every class will be offered virtually so that no student will be forced to choose between a delayed graduation and putting their and their family's health at risk by coming to campus?
So I'm glad to take that. I know that the faculty members at the college have been incredibly flexible and working very hard ever since the spring as this pandemic has played out. And many classes are being offered this semester in either a hybrid or a fully online format, but not all. If a student has questions related to enrollment in a course in any format, whether it's in person, online, or hybrid, they need to reach out to the faculty member or the department office to see exactly what their options are. If a student is scheduled to graduate this year, my expectation is that we will work with that student and with the department to find a substitute wherever possible to ensure that the student can graduate on time.
By the way, that was our new provost, Dr. Suzanne Austin.
Thank you, President Hsu.
All right, let's go ahead and go to our next question. It concerns COVID testing. It says, are the home tests acceptable for the COVID testing requirements?
Hey, Mike, I'll take that one. So there are a couple of national labs. I know that Quest and LabCorp both offer at-home testing where you do a nasal swab and can send that off for results. Those are PCR tests, and those are acceptable forms of getting your test accomplished before you come to campus. If you do have any questions, please feel free to call Student Health Services. Go to the main website and just put in student health into the search bar, and our information will come up, and you can give us a call or email us, and we'd be happy to answer more specific questions as needed.
All right, thank you, Bridget. Let's go to the next question here. Some piano majors do not have pianos at home. Will the piano room in the music building be available to those students while classes are still virtual?
That is a great question, and I am not sure that I can provide the answer to that right now, but I will certainly look into it, and we can get back with the appropriate answer as soon as I get the information.
All right, let's go ahead and go to the next question. If the college decides to go all virtual and the dorms close, will room and board fees be refunded so that students can get an apartment in town for the rest of the semester?
Hi, Mike. This is Amy Orr from Campus Services, and the answer is yes. If residence halls do not open or if they close at some point during the semester, we would certainly provide refunds for housing as well as meal plans.
Thank you, Amy. Another question from the Q&A, and then after that, we'll pick up a question that came from our COVID-19 email. Let's go to this one now. On August 28th, the college will make a final decision about returning to campus on September the 14th. Now, if the decision is to return to campus, can we feel safe about the certainty of that decision, or is there a possibility the decision will change between August the 28th and September the 14th? Now, if so, what factors could change that decision within those 3 weeks?
Mike, this is Paul Patrick. I'm Chief of Staff for President Hsu. And once we make that decision on the 28th, we have every expectation that that's our decision and we're moving forward with that. However, if the past 5 months have taught us anything, it is that certainties are a scary thing to give anyone in this day and age. But having said that, I would say that, we would need to see case numbers jump significantly. We would need to see the percent positive rate jump by, as much as 10 points. We would need to see some things that are very much outside any sort of even 2 standard deviations of expectations of those types of events occurring. So once we make that decision on the 28th, we are committed to that decision. There's a lot that goes into getting a campus ready for students to move in. And once we pull that trigger on the 28th, either a go or no go, we have every expectation that that's where we're headed.
All right.
So this is Andrew Hsu. I want to add that one possibility is if the state government or the governor says that all higher education institution has to switch to online education during those 3 weeks period of time, then that, or 2 weeks period of time, then that's when we will have to switch. But other than that, I think it's safe to say that if we made the decision, we'll go forward with.
Thank you, President Hsu. Let's, like I said, go to a question concerning our COVID-19 email address. By the way, that address, if you want to send us a question, is covid19.cfc.edu. If the college decides to go online for the rest of the semester, will you discount tuition?
So this is President Hsu again. If like we just said, we have every expectation to have our campus open on September 14th to have in-person classes. But if for some reason that the college is forced to move fully online for the entire fall semester, then yes, we will explore financial relief with the COVID-19 grants for our students and families.
Thank you, President Hsu. Let's go to the next question. Is it possible that we will have another extended course withdrawal period this fall?
Fran, do you want to take that? Because I'm not sure what the extended policy was in the spring. I'm sorry.
Well, I'm not going to be of much help, but like you, I will get the answer to that question for you, and then we can post it in the at the COVID-19 site. I'll find out from the registrar.
Great. All right. So just stay tuned and we'll have that answer for you. Next question here. When will fraternity rush be and sorority rush?
Hi, Mike. I can take that question. Hi, everyone. It's Alicia Cadill in Student Affairs. I am pulling up. There is a link to this off of our Back on the Brick site. But both of the recruitment periods will start after the 3 weeks of virtual learning. So sorority recruitment will be later in the fall semester, and then fraternity recruitment they'll have a convocation that's virtual during the first 3 weeks of the semester. So if you'll take a look at the COVID site, there's all the details on there and how to sign up for each of the different recruitments. And the majority of that recruitment of that process will be virtual, as well as the new member process this year.
All right, let's go ahead and go to the next question. If the college decides to go fully online, will student athletes and others who have already been allowed to move in be allowed to stay?
So I can start that question again as well. So certainly the first priority we are going to have is about student safety and their wellness and well-being. That being said, we also understand how disruptive it can be to move in and move out. We know spring was really disruptive. So I know it's not the answer that we all like right now, but the answer is really it will depend. It will depend on the spread of the campus and how we're managing our isolation and quarantine spaces and taking care of and supporting those students. It will a lot depend on timing of the semester and how many weeks of classes might be left. Our goal would be certainly to be as minimally disruptive as possible. And to try to keep students here if it was all possible and we felt like it would be safe to do so. But at this point, it would be hard for us to predict exactly what the best course would be.
Okay, Matt Roberts, you want to take anything or answer anything concerning the student athletes themselves?
No, I think Alicia answered that appropriately, and our student athletes are our students first, and we'll follow whatever the guidelines the campus sets forth for students and student housing.
All right, thank you, Matt. Another question from the Q&A, and then after that one, we'll take another one from the COVID-19 email address that we've been talking about earlier. Classes are starting next Tuesday, so how will class schedules work for the rest of the year? Will my Monday classes still be on Monday of the week after next?
So this is Suzanne. I will take that question. Great question. It's correct that classes start Tuesday, and yes, Monday classes will be meeting on Monday of the following week.
All right, another COVID-19 email question that we received. Based on what we're seeing happening at other universities across the country, is September 14th still a realistic date for starting in-person classes?
This is President Andrew Hsu. Certainly what happened at other universities where they had to switch to online education after just 1 week is not good news for us. But looking at what's going on in South Carolina, looking at the trend and looking at our own plan of Back on the Bricks plan, which is very well thought out, we still believe that it's realistic for us to start in-person classes in September 14th, on September 14th.
Thank you, President Hsu. Okay, now let's all put our minds as a student. What is your expectation of the day-to-day life of an on-campus student? It seems like they basically wake up, put on a mask, and basically almost self-isolate or socially distance at all times other than when they're in the classroom. Thinking about how this daily routine seems both impractical and harsh, how are we justifying returning students to campus? Please walk us through how you see a typical day for a student.
Hi, Mike. I will start that question. There may be other folks who want to weigh in. The first piece I would talk about are things we've talked about in some of these town halls before, is that, you know, our whole world is different. So even when we're in our homes that are not on campus, we're living life in a different way than we did last year at this time. So what we're really working to do is to acknowledge the world that we're living in, and then work on creating this as full and robust of experience as possible. So certainly, even for our on-campus students, we'll all be doing a combination of in-person and virtual activities and engagement throughout the fall semester, and until, you know, we have this pandemic in a better situation. So what I envision for a student is certainly, you know, obviously getting up, putting your face covering on, but also you'll have access to dining halls, you'll have access to the library, you'll have access to the Stern Center. If you have, you know, one class that's in person and then your next class is virtual, there are some Zoom spaces on campus. We've done a lot of work. Our facilities team has done some incredible work to create some spaces outdoors that are tented, so there's more spaces you can gather, or be outside and be socially distant with other people. But we also are working on some really robust virtual programming. Our Weeks of Welcome schedule just launched this week. There are lots of things you can do even virtually before you get here. All of the planning, we're working on a series of planning, for example, around thinking about the elections, and all of those are being planned with the idea of they could be virtual or in person in small groups. I do think we'll all have to do more planning ahead, because we'll have limits on the number of people that can be in spaces. So oftentimes you'll be asked to reserve a ticket or a spot for that place, so we can make sure that we have the right number of people. We're looking at a lot of things that we can do both in person and virtual. So no matter where you are, you can engage in that. So while I think it will definitely look different as our whole world looks different, there still will be a number of things you can do and ways you can connect, and certainly ways you can connect in your class and with your roommates and suite mates.
Now, Alicia, I know you've talked to many students in the last couple of days. They're still excited about coming here.
President Hsu and I were just with a group of students a couple of hours ago, and they really want to be here, and they want all of their peers to do all of the actions and to stay safe, to make sure that we can be here and be together yet socially distant as appropriate.
Mike, this is Andrew Hsu. I want to add that there's still a lot of ways that you can have in-person activities, but still maintain social distance. You know, for example, in our music department, they've already have designed ways to have band practice in Cistern Yard and so forth. So I think we will have a lot of in-person activities, but in a safe, social distance way.
Thank you for that answer. Let's go ahead and go to some more questions here. If campus is to close, will the resident halls remain open to students just with all virtual classes?
And Mike, I will talk about that one again. So this would certainly be the piece of, it will depend on kind of the status of things. If we feel like we're able to manage the halls well in our quarantine and isolation, we have space to do all that support. It would be our desire not to disrupt students and make you move back and forth a bunch of times. It will depend on the timing. If we're closer to Thanksgiving, we may be able to work on that. And then certainly we would always work with student exemptions for students that have really serious situations that require just that opportunity to stay in the hall. And we would follow, I'm sure, a similar process to what we have done both this spring and then for this fall as well.
Another question here about gatherings. We've seen this across the nation where there's some large student gatherings at different colleges and universities. Has the college considered limiting or suspending the activities of Greek fraternity organizations until it is safe to have large gatherings?
And Mike, I'll take this one too. So I hope that all of you are aware that we have an addendum to our code of conduct that limits gatherings, social gatherings off campus to 10 people or less, and that applies to all of our student organizations or even non-organizations gatherings of students. So that certainly covers our fraternities and sororities as well. And additionally, if any organization is going to have an event off campus that's appropriate with the appropriate number of students and socially distanced and following all of our policies, they have to register that event so that we're aware of it and it can be approved. So so it's certainly not just fraternities and sororities, but we don't really want any of our groups having large gatherings right now, just like we're not doing large gatherings overall in the Charleston area.
Let's go back to a testing question now. DHEC has offered free COVID testing, but they only send an email if your result is negative. Will this email be enough to satisfy the requirement to move back onto campus?
Hey, Mike, I'll take that one. So my understanding of the way that DHEC offers testing, except in a few areas of the state, is it's usually through a medical provider, and then that medical provider can provide results of either positive or negative. And obviously there are a lot of people on this call. So DHEC is the Department of Health and Environmental Control here in South Carolina, but there are a lot of people that are in this town hall that aren't anywhere near the state of South Carolina, and you have your own health departments and your own different locations. So what we really are asking for is a copy of the PCR test result, and or if your health department has provided something that has the health department letterhead on it and your name and your birthday and identifying information, I think that would be an acceptable alternative. If you have a question, please give us a call at Student Health Services and we can kind of help sort of individually figure that out with you.
Thank you, Bridget. If the campus opens and move-in is from the 11th through the 13th, should students who are in transit let their professors know in case they aren't able to attend class due to the move?
I can certainly start the response to that question. We, as we set these dates and looked at our plans, we involved our partners in academic affairs. So faculty are certainly aware of the move-in date. Of course, the 12th and the 13th are Saturday and Sunday. So, so we know there aren't many classes offered on those days, but yes, please be in communication with your faculty if your plans require you to travel and you're not able to participate in the class activities that are scheduled for those days. I would encourage you to do that next week so that they're well prepared and you can find out what you can do in advance to make sure any material you may miss you're able to cover. So I would just suggest communicating with your faculty, but they're aware of the move-in schedule and are aware that they will need to support some of our students, particularly perhaps on the Thursday and Friday as you're making plans to get to Charleston.
Amy, or are you getting a lot of questions from people concerning move-in right now?
Students have already signed up for their move-in time slots now, so we really are not getting a lot of questions about them at this point.
That's great news. Okay, let's go ahead and go to the next question here. Provost Welch has mentioned multiple times that students can opt for a fully online semester and that students will be accommodated no matter what the set of delivery for each class is. However, there seems to be miscommunication internally as each department is approaching things differently and relying completely different and relaying completely different information. What is the college doing to fix this miscommunication in order to better help and suit fully online students?
Maybe I should take this one, Suzanne, since I'm no longer the provost. Is that okay?
Absolutely.
So, you know, we are changing as we go, and we realize that we could not put all of our classes online, as Provost Austin said earlier. And I certainly do apologize for any miscommunication. We are working diligently through our deans and chairs to help students get the schedules that they need as much as we possibly can. So I do apologize for miscommunication.
Thank you, Fran. Let's go ahead and get some more questions here. Will grades for the fall semester be pass-fail again, or will they be normal?
Right now, given our plans to be back on campus the 14th of September, the plan is that grades will be regular letter grades, and that's the plan. If the decision was made at some point that the semester would move to online, then we would have to be considering whether or not we would implement the pass-fail option for the fall. But our plans are moving forward with on campus, and so it would be regular letter grades.
All right. Obviously, COVID-19 is not the only thing we have to worry about there. It goes to our next question. Will the college offer flu clinics for students?
Thanks, Mike. I'll take this one. So yes, short answer is yes. I'm already in conversations with people to coordinate space on campus and some providers to do that. But people should also know that Student Health Services has plenty of flu vaccine that's available at Student Health Services to provide that to students upon request. There are also multiple pharmacies in the area where people can get flu shots. I will say that although I heard that CVS here in town is giving out flu shots currently, we ourselves have not yet received our flu vaccine yet. It's on its way shortly, but yes, the answer is we will be having flu clinics this fall.
Thank you, Bridget. Let's go back to large crowds again. The next question is concerning that. Is the college going to be policing large gatherings via social media? For instance, the pledge states that if campus or local police find CFC students hosting parties or gatherings, they are subject to the honor board disciplinary consequences. But if we see a post of this happening on social media, will, one, the college go after these students, and two, are we as their peers supposed to report somewhere?
I'll take this one, Mike. Alicia Cadell, Student Affairs again. So first, thanks for this question and for paying very good attention to the information that's being shared and being able to summarize it in this way. That shows that our communication is getting out there, and we appreciate that. So yes, what we are doing is as we receive reports about off-campus gatherings, we are looking into them, and we're following that process in the code addendum, which walks through kind of a three-part honor code process. So that's laid out in the addendum of the kind of the first, second, and third step. So we certainly don't see it as going after students. We see it as responding to address behaviors that we know aren't helpful in the current situation that we're living in. So there is a link on the Dean of Students website. It's also on the back on the BRICS website that you can report possible violations of these situations, or you can also email myself or email Dr. Cabot, the Dean of Students, and we certainly look into that and verify the information, and then we work through that process. And I think an important idea of this is helping other students understand, you know, our behaviors now really kind of impact what happens in 2 weeks, because we know if we're exposed to something now, we might see other cases start rising in 2 weeks. So this really is about keeping our campus safe and doing everything we can so that we can have the in-person experience that we would like to have.
So Dr. Cadell, let me chime in there, and she is absolutely right in that your behavior could actually affect our results and what we can and cannot do. I would encourage all the students to look at what happened at Notre Dame and what happened at UNC Chapel Hill and understand that students' behavior could decide or determine whether a campus can or cannot stay open with in-person on-campus classes. So I would encourage you all to adhere to all the rules and the pledges that you have signed or you will be signing.
Thank you, President Hsu. Next question concerns quarantine. If a student needs to quarantine, what happens to their roommate and their suite mates? Do they need to quarantine too?
Hey, Mike, this is Bridget at Student Health. So I'm going to clarify a little thing here. because I think we're actually talking about isolation. So if a student needs to isolate because they are positive, what happens to their roommates and suite mates? So the isolated student is going to be moved out of their living space to minimize their contact. There's going to be, if there's a question, they'll be moved to a transitional quarantine space while we're getting testing. If the test comes back negative, the student will move back to their original space and their roommates will not have been quarantining in the meantime. If the student is positive, then the student will go into isolation. They'll move out of the transitional quarantine. They'll go into isolation in one of the residence halls that we've set aside specifically for this purpose. And then the students' roommates will likely quarantine from that point forward. So they will quarantine in their space. Student Health Services will be following up both with the student who is who has symptoms and is in isolation, and we will also be following up with the students that are in quarantine and monitoring to see if they develop symptoms, and then if they do develop symptoms, making sure that they get tested. So we have a very robust plan in place for our quarantine and isolation procedures, and it's very different depending upon the situation. We have lots of different, living situations on campus, but that's sort of the meat of it.
All right, thank you, Bridget. Let's go ahead and continue with some more questions here. What percentage of students live off campus? Why are you not requiring all students to be tested prior to returning? And why are faculty exempt?
I think I'll take that one too, Mike. So we have about roughly 75% of our students live off campus. And so it's so the reason that we are requiring our students that are coming onto campus to test prior to coming is because congregate living spaces tend to be higher risk spaces. So we are trying to take a very holistic approach. Our objective is to bring everyone back and keep everyone safe. So we're starting with our on-campus students and making sure and requiring that those students do it. We are highly recommending that our off-campus students do it as well. And all students upload those records into the record system that is available through My Charleston. So as the semester progresses, we will be doing random testing, which will include our off-campus students as well as our on-campus students and our faculty and staff. So that we'll be talking about that after we sort of get through this initial phase. And the reason currently that faculty don't have that same requirement is because we have had faculty and staff on campus for a good part of the summer, and we have a program in place where we are having them monitor their symptoms daily, and if they develop symptoms, they stay away from work, they reach out to their provider, they get tested as appropriate. So we do feel that the plan that we have in place it addresses all the different variables, and there's nothing that's perfect. We know we'll have positive cases when students come back to campus, and we're going to try to keep our eye very close on that. We're going to really try to emphasize the mask wearing and the social distancing and the hand hygiene. So, and test as appropriate, and do contact tracing or case investigation and contact tracing as well, which is a huge component that's very important too.
Thank you, Bridget. Another question concerning large gatherings. If students choose to congregate with more than 10 people, what will be the consequences? Other schools are not allowing students who don't follow the COVID-19 guidelines to live on campus. Some are not allowing them to take classes. What is CSC doing?
Thanks, Mike. I'll take this one too. I guess I get all the party questions tonight. So we have a process, and there's a kind of 3-step process, but it also depends on the severity of the situation. Just like with our other code of conduct possible violations, we look at them on a case-by-case basis and determine the possible violations that might be there. And if they're more severe, then those consequences can be more severe. So, and certainly we're not allowing these types of gatherings in our residence halls and those kinds of things. So, we're working to certainly be student-centered and to create a process that is that gives due process to the students, but we also want students to take this very seriously. So there could be some possible significant consequences for folks that have severe violations of this policy.
All right, thanks. Next question here. Will the janitorial staff be required to take COVID testing periodically as well? They're interacting with a lot of different surfaces and are in a lot of different spaces, just like students.
Mike, this is John Morris, Vice President for Facilities Management. I'll take an initial stab in that, and maybe Bridget can add to it. But I think Bridget's answer a couple of questions ago regarding the processes we have on campus have been working. Our staff have been here since they've never really left campus. They were here in March and been here through the whole summer. So we, at the same time, we're providing them with the protective equipment that they need, masks and gloves, teaching them on proper cleaning procedures per CDC and EPA and OSHA guidelines so that they can keep themselves safe while they create a safe environment for the rest of the campus. Bridget, do you want to add to that?
No, I think that's they are themselves doing a really good job of wearing their masks and wearing gloves and cleaning and maintaining social distance. So it's, if at some point it seems appropriate for us to be testing more than just the student population, we will definitely be considering all options and are, continuing to talk to all providers to do, large scale testing as appropriate.
And
This is Andrew Hsu.
Bridget.
I just want to mention that Bridget mentioned earlier that we are going to have random testing for both of our students, our faculty and staff. So we can certainly, for the high risk groups, we can certainly have a more focused and concentrated random testing. So that's also going to be part of the testing plan.
Thank you, President Hsu. Let's go to the next question here. Were parking passes mailed out or was it delayed due to a pushback of in-person classes? I have yet to receive mine, just wondering.
Hey, Mike, this is Amy Orr from Campus Services. So due to the delayed start of in-person classes, we did extend the permit payment deadline until August 21st. And students who were assigned parking permits and paid by that deadline will receive their passes in the mail. They will be mailed out next week, and you should receive it by September the 4th. If you don't, please contact our office at campusservices@cfc.edu.
Thank you, Amy. Another classroom question. Will remote classes be live or will they be recorded?
There will be a combination of both synchronous and asynchronous courses. Many of the courses will be live. We are encouraging folks to also tape those live courses. But some courses will be asynchronous, which means that they will not be delivered live and they will be recorded and accessible to students when it fits into the student schedule.
All right, have a social distancing question here. When you say practice social distancing, are you expecting that students will walk 6 feet apart at all times going to and from classes, even while wearing a mask? Even when walking with their roommates? It seems very impractical. It seems more reasonable to me that they keep their distance when not wearing a mask.
Mike, I'm going to take that one on. Okay, so yes, we are going to expect that students, when they are going to and from class, that they wear their masks. And but no, are they going to be able to keep themselves 6 feet apart at all times? Probably not, as people are passing each other in hallways or are, sort of briefly interacting with people. They probably won't be able to maintain that 6 feet apart at all times, which is why we are asking people to wear masks, because you can't always ensure it. If you have a roommate that they're kind of part of your social pod, they are somebody with whom you don't always have to be wearing your mask. So if you go outside and you want to go for a walk and you're off campus, on campus you'll have to wear a mask. But if you're off campus and you're going for a walk outside with your roommate, I think that it's okay not to have your mask on, but you should have your mask with you just in case you run into some other friends and you want to sit and chat, you want to get that mask back on. I know it seems impractical, but what we do know is masks really help. And if we want to be back on campus and we want to have some semblance of normalcy, then we got to do this thing and wear masks. It's just one of the things that we can do to kind of help get us all back to some semblance of a normal life.
Paul Patrick, if I can ask you a question here, the College of Charleston isn't the only place that's requiring you to wear a mask. The city of Charleston is too, right?
That is correct, Mike. There is a current municipal ordinance that requires face masks in the city of Charleston. The College of Charleston campus is within the city's bounds, and we are required to abide by city ordinance. So we've been working with the city about enforceability of that ordinance on our campus, and we fully expect to partner with them, especially in the weeks as soon as we get back, to make sure that that's happening. But we certainly want students to do it while they're on campus, because the expectation from everyone that lives here in Charleston is that as they move about the city, and it's not just the city of Charleston, the town of Mount Pleasant, all of Charleston County, we all have face mask ordinances when you're out and about. So you need to be prepared when you come here. If you're not in a region of the country right now that requires that, that is required while you're at the college and in and about the Charleston region.
Okay, thank you, Paul. We're running out of time. Let me throw in some questions here while we can, maybe the lightning round, as we say right here. Can you please clarify the consequences for not following the Cougar Pledge? Thanks.
I'll take that one, Mike. So the Cougar Pledge is really meant to inspire. You know, we have a lot of policies and procedures that have an enforcement piece for it. And the pledge is really meant to be an inspirational place where we come together as a community and show that we understand and support all the things that will keep our community safe. So there's not a consequence for not following it for unless you're violating one of the policies that also exist. But we really just want it to be something that helps us all know how we can commit together as a community to do our best to keep everybody safe.
A testing question now. Can I go ahead and get tested now instead of waiting until August the 28th?
The answer is you can always get tested whenever you want to, but if you want to move into the residence halls and you want to be able to meet what we are asking to do, you need to provide a negative test that has been performed either on August 28th or after. If you have a positive test that is prior to that date, then that is an acceptable test result to use, because by the time we bring people back onto campus, you will be recovered from COVID-19 at that point.
All right, couple more questions here. How does the COVID situation impact the high hurricane storms expected this fall?
So, Mike, this is Paul Patrick, Chief of Staff. So, as our Executive Vice President for Student Affairs, Alicia Cadell, has said in probably a dozen of these town halls this far, we've just decided we're not going to have hurricanes this year. Now, whether or not that comes to be truthful or not, but that's certainly the mentality we're approaching. But no, hurricanes are something that we live with in the Low Country, and we're planning on it. We're planning on, if it happens, how do we respond? Every storm is different. Every evacuation process is different. What I can assure you is that if we fall into that situation again this year, I can't tell you what the evacuation process is going to look like because it depends on the severity and track of the storm. But whatever it is, our evacuation process will be COVID-19 compliant.
All right, fingers are crossed. Let's go to the last question here. For students in international relations programs, there was a requirement to study abroad, and now with COVID-19, is that requirement going to be waived?
Yes, I'm happy to take that. Suzanne Austin, Provost. Yes, absolutely. All universities across the country are waiving study abroad requirements because it's virtually impossible right now to travel internationally, and so that is not a reasonable requirement. One hopes that we will be able to get back to international travel and study abroad as soon as possible, but right now that is not a reasonable requirement.
All right, thank you very much. And that concludes this Q&A portion of today's event. Before I send it back to President Hsu for some closing remarks, I want to remind you that you can stay up to date on general College of Charleston news by visiting our university news site. It's the College Today, and you can go to it at today.charleston.edu. go.cfc.edu. Now, for details on the college's plan for fall 2020, please visit our Back on the Bricks website, and you can find that at go.cfc.edu/bricks. Now, I'll turn it back to President Hsu for closing remarks. President Hsu.
Thank you, Mike. Again, I want to share with you my excitement about this fall semester. To all the students, you will learn new things, you will meet new people, you will acquire new skills, you will make new discoveries, both in the world and about yourself. Even in this time of great uncertainty, I feel a sense of unity. These are tough times for all of us, but we will get through this together. So thank you and see you soon. Go Cougars.